12 players out of the portal for Michigan State so far. How do we like how things are shaking out for our Spartans? And then your number one ranked hockey team. That's right, Great Lakes Invitational right around the corner.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much again for tuning in during the holiday season right here on Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white 5 days a week. Please rate, review, subscribe, get ready for some hockey talk. That's right, your number one ranked Michigan State Spartans. They got the Great Lakes Invitational going on in Grand Rapids. We are joined by Jeremy Dewar of Spartans Illustrated to talk about the upcoming 2-day tournament for the Icy Spartans. But, hey, of course, it's still portal season, right, guys? We still have, at the time of recording, 2 days for players to still enter their names in the portal. Now, of course, they could take all the time they want to commit to another place, but for this cycle, until the spring cycle, that's right, less than 48 hours to make their decision. So let's talk about the portal right now. Let's dive into the mailbag at lockedonspartans@gmail.com. And one of my favorite people that reaches out, his name is Rick. He writes in, looking good so far. The big guy from Wake Forest appears to have decent stats as an interior offensive lineman. Looks like he will work at the center position. What's your take on all this movement? Now, we were going to talk about the portal anyway, but since Rick wanted to ask, well, I'll just make it sound like that we're only going to talk about it because he wants to know how we feel. Right now, overall, I'm pleased. 12 guys have committed to Michigan State. Yes, you've seen some big-ish names leave the program because when you talk about the portal, you can't just talk about who you brought in. You also got to talk about who has left. Charles Brantley, that's a tough one to miss as he goes to, Miami to play for the Hurricanes down there. What we've said, a few weeks ago when he entered, it's not like that was shocking to us. It was his 17th entry in the portal. He's kind of seemed like he's always wanted greener pastures. So that one, while it hurts, didn't necessarily drive like a knife in all of our hearts in shock. But outside of that, I think Jalen Thompson's the other one that you're really going to miss. A guy that played pretty well as a true freshman. He goes down to Memphis. So other than that, though, not to just be the meanest person in the world and say we're not going to miss any of those other names. I don't know. I think we, not to use the big mean word, but I think replaceable players is, who else has left. Now, what has come in to this program right here? Well, right now, Rivals says that you have the 20th best portal class in the nation, 5th best in the Big Ten. And Rivals also gives 4-star ratings to wide receiver Omari Kelly out of Middle Tennessee State, and then Matt Gulbin. That's the interior offensive lineman that Rick was talking about at the top of this show. And it's also important to know what the portal is and isn't, right, guys? Like, the portal is used for, by and large, like Band-Aids. It's very hard to find difference makers in the portal, and I know us Michigan State fans, we struck gold, diamonds, really, in the 2021 season with Kenneth Walker. Very, very hard to find something like that every portal season. But, hey, if it's just for filling up holes, finding some Band-Aids, well, Michigan State also had no shortage of those going into this offseason. Like, on the offensive line, like, that's first and foremost, I think, where you had to look. It was either offensive line or pass rush. Those were the two big ones. Depending on what day you asked me, I'd probably give you a different answer, but that is 1A and 1B. The offensive line needed some help, right, guys? And it's not just, about getting better on the surface, okay, bringing in some good talent. It's just about also, well, replacing your best two guys that you've lost in Tanner Miller and Luke Newman, both out of eligibility. Well, that is helped a lot with Matt Gulbin. Now, if you missed our episode after he committed, I'll run through some stats really quick. Pro Football Focus gives him a 72.9 overall, and also for pass blocking, 78.5. That's just another way of saying he's really good. He's a strong player. That's the 5th best guard in the ACC in pass blocking. He only allowed 1 sack on the season. And for running the ball, well, he was the 2nd best guard, according to Pro Football Focus, in the ACC. Now, one stat that we'd like to attribute to this, Wake Forest top running back, his name was Desmond Claiborne, 59 times he ran either through Gulbin's A gap or B gap. And all 59 of those times, if you add it all together, 5.0 yards per carry. That was the most in any gap that Desmond Claiborne had for Wake Forest. You also got Luka Vincic out of Oregon State. We'll see what he turns into. He played sparingly for the Beavers last season, but he was presumed to have the starting job waiting for him in Corvallis should he come back. But again, for young offensive linemen, it's more of a wait-and-see thing. But hey, you got someone with experience. You can only be happy about that. And speaking of experience, yes, did it at a lower level at Western Carolina, but Caleb Carter, who has played all over the line in his career. So add that onto the depth we've already have in the interior with Christian Phillips, Gavin Brocious, and of course a few others. You feel okay about the offensive line position. You still need a tackle. I think like Stanton Ramble, I think he's going to be your left tackle going into the season. But over there at the right tackle, wasn't the greatest season for Ashton Lepo. Wonder if they will bring anyone in for competition or if it's all going to be just development in-house. But that's where we sit right now on the offensive line. Now the second, or again, maybe even the first, depending on the day, what mood you're in, the pass rush was the other glaring hole that this team had. And so far, they've gotten 3 pickups, right? Like the guy we just talked about last episode, the early Christmas gift, David Santiago. Now, is he one of like the top 10 edge rushers in the portal in the country? No. But redshirt freshman season, I should say, over at Air Force, productive over there, right? Like he had as many sacks in the last month of the season that Michigan State had as a whole in their last month of the season. And yes, I know he did it against Mountain West, and Michigan State plays in the Big Ten, but still, you're getting a young redshirt freshman, 3 years of eligibility, who has produced at least at an FBS level. I'm not saying that he's the reincarnation of William Golston, and he's going for 15 sacks next year. No, but it's someone that has at least shown a body of work with room to grow. I think for Michigan State and their situation they're in right now, they're not going to go out and get that $900,000 defensive end right now. Like, just that's fact of the matter. Hopefully we'll get there one day when it's an off season where we just need just a few holes filled. No, Michigan State has a lot that they still need to get out in the portal. That's why they're being a little smart. And okay, well, who can we get that's not going to cost us an arm and a leg, that has already shown they can produce beyond their careers and still has years of eligibility? Well, enter David Santiago. I really like that pickup for our Spartans. Anelu Lafayette from Wisconsin did not play last year, but came out of high school, Hawaii, as a 4-star recruit, has 4 years of eligibility left on his clock. And then, not a portal addition, he was part of the signing class. We talked about this last episode, but Leonard Ayu from Hawaii signed with Oregon State 2 years ago, went on a mission trip, never actually played for the Beavers. So he comes in here the same age as an incoming junior does, and we'll see what he does with the edge rush or the linebacker position wherever they're going to slot him. Now, wide receivers. Okay, this is the third hole that we needed filled, and it wasn't, glaringly obvious going into the offseason, but when everyone leaves, like Isaiah Johnson, Jerron Glover, every single person that recorded a stat in the receiver room, except for Nick Marsh, is gone. Like, that also includes Montori Foster, who ran out of eligibility, but you get Christian McCray and Omari Kelly. I think that this is probably the biggest upgrade that you've seen from a position group. Like, yes, like the Matt Gulbin addition for the offensive line, that's a really solid one. Kind of just plugs in for where you had either Luke Newman or Tanner Miller. I don't know if he's going to be better or much better than those guys, but I think Omari Kelly and Christian McCray, with what they've done, yes, granted at a group of 5 level, I think it can be above what guys like Jerron Glover had, for example. 15 catches, 192 yards. Like, that's what we're replacing right there. Isaiah Johnson, another younger player, had some really good moments. Overall, the numbers weren't necessarily there. So can one of these guys, though, replace Montori Foster's 46 catches and 488 yards? Well, I think so, because also you saw it this year. Nick Marsh is the feature now. We just need really good guys to also complement him, too. And what you get out of Christian McCray, something that we've talked about up and down this portal cycle, is a player Michigan State really didn't have last year, and a player that Oregon State did have under Jonathan Smith and Brian Lindgren, like the Anthony Golds, the Silas Boldens. Now, Anthony Gold right now is currently in the NFL. Silas Bolden was one of the most highly sought-after wide receivers in the transfer portal last year. Underwhelming season for him statistically at Texas. But what I'm trying to say is that they needed like that speedy slot receiver. Try to make it work with Alante Brown this year. Didn't necessarily work, largely because Alante Brown could just never stay healthy, unfortunately. Isaiah Johnson, yeah, again, really good flashes right there. looking for someone a little more polished and that fits that slot receiver role, and I think you get that with Christian McCray. So I think that's a really good upgrade. That's why I'm pleased right now. And I also like what they've done in the secondary. We've talked about that ad nauseum and still will talk about it. But just really quick, I like Najee Burt, Joshua Eaton, Malcolm Bell, guys that are experienced, that have played that position for years and also produced at a lower level in starting roles. Okay, not just going down to SEC country, seeing who lost their starting spot and then rolling the dice on them. We've seen that strategy in East Lansing. Hasn't necessarily worked. So there's still more work to be done. Again, offensive tackle would be great. Anyone else on the defensive line? Sure. Open arms. If you play anywhere in the trenches, by God, just come on down to East Lansing. We will never complain about you there. But overall, I'm feeling pleased right now. I mean, I'm not saying that you should clear out Grand River and get ready for the national championship parade, or that you should clear your schedules in December because Michigan State's hosting a playoff game next year. If you just look at all the action, who's in, who's out from the last few weeks, still with 2 days to go for guys to decide if they want to leave this cycle. Let's keep that in mind. But I think who's coming in, who's coming out, Michigan State has gotten a little better this offseason. Let me know if you disagree. By all means, lockedonspartans@gmail.com. But thank you very much for that question, Rick. And guys, we're going to be back here in a hot second. We got to talk about that Michigan State hockey team. But first, need to talk your ears off about Rocket Money. That's right. We spent a boatload of money this Christmas season. I'm sure you did too. So let's save some money with Rocket Money, because they can help find any subscriptions that you forgot about or that you're paying twice for. Like, that's definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and the Rocket Money app made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. And it brings everything together in one convenient place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Folks, that's right. We're talking that Michigan State hockey. And of course, it's not just me. We have the expert, the godfather of all things Michigan State hockey. That's Jeremy Dewar of Spartans Illustrated. And Jeremy, of course, we're going to talk about the Great Lakes Invitational coming up here in a hot minute. But last time we talked, Michigan State was ahead of a huge back-to-back road series at Wisconsin first, then at number 1 Minnesota. And we said, Jeremy, you personally better get us 3 wins out of those 4 games, or we don't want to talk to you ever again. But God, Jeremy, you did it. You got us 3 wins in some tough road environments. You got to be feeling great after that series. I know at this point it seems like it happened a few months ago, but God, what a great road series for our Michigan State Spartans.
Yeah. No, beating Minnesota is kind of like the one that always kind of hangs over my head. There's a big rivalry with Minnesota going back to being a youth hockey player. So any chance you get to beat them feels really great. I know that there was injuries and there is some sure. reasoning to it. So it's going to be a big series when they come back to Mon. But that just felt like something that even as the team's been better, it always just feels like we have to go through Minnesota to feel like it's really there. And now it feels real. So.
And right now, both at the top of the Big Ten standings. Of course, like all the games are skewed. Like Wisconsin's already played 12 conference games. Michigan State's sitting at 8, whatever. But nevertheless, go for Spartans, still at the top. I just want to go back to that series just for a quick question before we look ahead to the GLI here. What was the defining moment of that Minnesota series? Because for me, it was that major penalty, 5 minutes of 4-on-5 hockey, and Michigan State only surrenders 1 goal, which I feel like was a win. Eventually that turned into a real win for Michigan State. But what was the defining moment for you in that series?
For me, honestly, it was that comeback in the second game in the third period.
Electric.
Like the Ike Howard goal to get them going was huge. And it just kind of said a lot of things to me. Like, one, coming back, to beat Minnesota in just 1 period is tough to do. Scoring like 3 goals in under 4 minutes is pretty impressive. But thinking back to last year, like Ike Howard was someone who got a lot of hype. I thought he played well, but he kind of towards the end of the season just was not producing the way that we were hoping. Like, still playing well, but the numbers weren't coming for him. Like he was probably feeling pretty snake bit. So he scores the first 2 goals in the game Saturday, and the one is to spark the comeback and get them rolling. And that kind of was like everything turned for me there. And a play like off the rush, it wasn't power play, it wasn't a fluky goal by any means, like a weird bounce or anything. Like they had a little bit of that in that series, and then that one was just ripping it glove side, and that felt pretty monumental. At a time when you think like it's 3-1, like if we don't get a goal here in the next couple minutes, like I think this is going to be just Minnesota closing it out. And so that was huge, and huge for Ike too. I think like he's someone who we need to have a much better second half from him this year than we did last year. Like I remember, I think we talked after the World Juniors last year, and it was just feeling like, oh, he's going to come back and light it on fire because he just had a great World Junior, and then he just couldn't get it going. So that's something I'm going to be watching for sure, is how he comes down the last little bit here.
The boys are rolling now. Number one, they are a wagon, as they call it in the hockey community. Did I do that right, Jeremy? Did I
100%. They're a wagon.
That's what I'm talking about. Haven't lost it, baby. But Michigan State, not the only ranked team in the Great Lakes Invitational taking place. Grand Rapids, both Sunday, Monday coming up. Michigan Tech, they are the USCHO, they do top 20. They would be 23rd based on votes received. But Western Michigan also sitting at number 6. That's who Michigan State would play. Okay. Should they beat Northern Michigan, who's not necessarily ranked, Jeremy? They've had a tough season. A few pucks haven't bounced their way. They are 116-1. Their last outright win in regulation came 2 months ago on October 18th. It's been a tough season here for Northern Michigan. So that's who Michigan State opens up with. Point blank, if MSU drops this game, we fire Adam Nightingale, right? We just cut it all, we burn it all down, and we actually just cut the whole program and save some more money for football. Is that fair? I think that's fair.
I think if we lose the game, I think we can keep Adam Nightingale, but you definitely have to do the Herbies after on publicly in front of everyone, just like in the movie Miracle. You got to make them do the Herbies. That's just unacceptable. I mean, Northern's had a tough go. Their coach left, I think. I can't remember the exact date, but it was like July that their head coach left to go to the AHL. Okay. So they had a recruiting class of 11 freshmen that was highly ranked, but it was mostly because of how many people they had. And that completely fell apart. So this is a pieced together roster. Little bit of throwback for MSU fans. Rick Comley, who's the athletic director at Northern, was the interim coach of this team for 2 months. So he was who helped try to piece together a recruiting class with no head coach, no assistant coaches. It was kind of a mess. So not a surprising start to their season. And MSU got a little bit of a lucky break on that too, because our freshman Lucas Shevich, the defenseman, was a Northern commit. And so up until late, midsummer, he was going to Northern, and then we lucked into an NHL draft pick. So I don't think they should struggle with Northern. If they struggle, you got to weigh in the guys and see how much they ate over Christmas, because true. That's unacceptable.
The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. For example, I love betting on who's going to score a touchdown every single weekend. We've gotten a little hot with that right now. So we're really going to test ourselves right now. How about Shane Zylstra, anytime touchdown this Monday night, Lions versus 49ers? Who's to say? Go ahead, mosey on over to FanDuel. You could find guys with lawn odds like him, or bet on the favorites like Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, for example. There's no shortage of Detroit Lions that you can wager on if that is what you're into. Or, hey, if it's hockey, college hockey specifically, what we've been talking about, Michigan State right now 10-1 on FanDuel to win the national title. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Look, this is also a tournament that Michigan State has had some weird voodoo in. They haven't won this thing since 2009. That's even before I was in college, Jeremy. It's been a hot minute since Michigan State has walked out with this trophy. Of course, it's not going to be a cakewalk. Yes, they are the #1 team, but Michigan Tech, Western Michigan on the other end I guess they play them no matter what happens against Michigan, Northern Michigan, I should say. What is the most interesting aspect of Western Michigan? We'll start with them, the number 6 team in the country. What's got them rolling? Because, of course, we're familiar with them, just faced them in the national championship tournament not too long ago. What's got the Broncos rolling right now?
Yeah, I mean they've really been excellent. Like they've had some good wins too themselves. Like how we're feeling about beating Minnesota or beating BC. Like they hosted Denver and got a win. And at a time that I think they were the first one to knock Denver off and take them off that number 1 perch. So, or no, sorry, they were second right after Arizona State. So, really, really good team. Like there's really no holes in their roster. Like they're completely from the net out have talent. They're going to be an older team. That's just kind of how Western's going to be built. They're going to be a lot of guys that are, 20-year-old freshmen who have a ton of talent. Some guys to watch, like freshman-wise, they have a kid named Ty Hendricks who is this humongous 6'5" forward who, just for myself, I'll be watching because I've seen him play since he was about 13 years old playing with some of my clients. So that's one that I'm going to be watching. But Cam Knuebel's had a really good year for them, a grad transfer from Notre Dame. He's been really excellent. And in that, Hampton Slukinski has been really good. Cameron Rowe's been good in that as well. Transferred from Wisconsin over to Western. So there's not going to be any holes. It's going to be a good team. You're not going to take advantage of them. So if we can get the matchup of 1 versus 6, that should be electric on Monday.
Absolutely. And let's say, it is Michigan Tech again. They would be 23rd if you count up all the votes, what have you. You get a lot of film from the UP, Jeremy. Are you hip to Michigan Tech, or what do they got going on up there besides a lot of snow?
I mean, yeah, I've seen a little bit of them. The most thing that I know from them this season is when they dropped a game, their coach absolutely ripped the whole roster publicly, so that was pretty fun.
The Izzo, nice. All right.
Yeah, he's an old school guy. It's not surprising at all that he would absolutely rip them at a time that they were doing really good. So it was funny that he went out and ripped them. No, I mean, similar to me to Western Michigan, but without that high-end talent. Like they're going to play their system. Okay. They're going to be buttoned up. They're going to look to slow the game down. They do not want to get into a track meet with MSU. That's a recipe for disaster for them. And really, like for Tech or Northern Michigan, it's going to they get up and they get some lucky bounce the first couple of minutes of the game and get a lead and then just hold on to it for dear life. Like they're not going to be a team that I think like Michigan State struggles to put away, which was the problem last year in the GLI was they had slow starts and they just couldn't use their superior talent to just see the tournament out. So they're going to want to come out this year to a much quicker start for sure.
And a quick turnaround after the GLI is over with. Wisconsin visits Thursday right after, so it's a 3-day break. Now, Wisconsin tied with Michigan State in the Big Ten standings right now, but just like I said earlier, they've played 4 games, more than the Spartans have right now. That said, look, third place is still third place out of this 7-team conference. Is Wisconsin the surprise of the Big Ten? Is there another team that's been a little bit more surprising so far, or is everything just going status quo in your opinion?
So I would say they're the surprise. I think like they started horrible. They really started the season bad.